I don't really have the words to describe how catastrophic it was. So basically, the scheme was they were slowly but progressively just having clients pay them directly, but I was still fulfilling the job. So I'm still paying the payroll, the materials, the fuel. Sometimes this was
Uh,
30 or $40,000 a month to maintain the business.
The military taught us discipline, it taught us leadership, but it never taught us how to really build wealth and income. This is the Active Duty Passive Income Podcast, and I'm your host, Markian Sich, a United States Marine turned full-time real estate investor and educator. I'm bringing you the most successful military, veteran, and military spouse real estate investors, entrepreneurs, and industry experts to break down exactly how they did it, so you can too. All right, ADPI, it's Markian Sich again, and we have, as usual, another amazing guest for you all. And this one's going to be really interesting for me in particular, because selfishly, I love doing podcasting now that this is a new part of my gig at ADPI, because I get to talk to some really cool people. And this one, I can tell, just based off of a little questionnaire we sent out before the podcast, that we're going to have a lot in common. Riddled with failure, it sounds like. And that's where you learn the best lessons. And so Travis Salley, did I pronounce that correctly?
Yep, that's it.
Perfect. I should have asked you before. Sorry, guys. But yeah, Travis, I only have 4 letters in my last name, and people still get it wrong all the time. So I always pause, like, wait a second, am I saying it right? But yeah, so Travis, give us a little just military background. Where were you born? Where did you come from? All that kind of stuff. And then we're going to get to the meat and potatoes, some really exciting conversation about all your successes and failures and what our members need to learn from it.
Yeah, Mark, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on. I am super stoked to talk with you today. So just a little about me.
Likewise.
I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada originally. So military, I initially enlisted in the Nevada National Guard. This was 2010. Went to basic training AIT as a combat engineer. And then I did ROTC, commissioned into the reserves as a signal officer. This was in 2013. And yeah, I kind of had a backwards career. I had a long time in the Guard and Reserve, and then I switched to active duty in 2017.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I've been active duty since then. I've been a signal officer. Right now, I teach military history at the United States Military Academy. It's a really awesome. Yeah, thanks. It's an awesome assignment.
You're up at West Point, huh?
Yeah.
The dark and gloomy West Point.
Yeah.
I have a chip on my shoulder as a Naval Academy grad.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm not in the cool guy club. I just teach there. I work there, but I did not go there. So I don't get invited to those type of parties.
They don't party there. What is it, like one McDonald's, like 20 minutes down the street or something?
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah. And a Burger King at the PX. That's about it.
There you go.
I teach military history. I'm working on my PhD right now. Man, I got a lot going on now that I think about it. I just in addition to all this investment, entrepreneurial stuff, I'm trying to finish my PhD in history, while I'm teaching here. Cool. But yeah, throughout my military career, I've always, and I do want to mention, before I was active duty, I had a career as a stockbroker and financial advisor. So, when I was at Edward Jones, that's where I got started, and I got my licenses. For some who are familiar with my Series 7 and Series 66. And then I worked at Wells Fargo Advisors for a couple years. Coincidentally, some of you may remember the whole scandal that happened in 2017 when Wells Fargo was making accounts. Yeah, they were making accounts for dead people and dogs and everything else. Good, nice. I was seeing what was going on, and coincidentally, that's when the military needed reserve officers to come active duty. So that's when I made the switch.
Gotcha. And so this was all happening while you were in the reserve and guard. You were working
That's right.
On the finance stuff. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
The whole active duty thing is what was very difficult for me to kind of accept or crack that nut when I was active duty.
Yeah.
And so I'm really excited to dig into that. First of all, most people think that you can't build a business while serving active duty. what made you want to do otherwise, believe otherwise, actually make it happen? Like, what was the thing? Because I mean, now we're going to talk about your companies and what you've done in a little bit, but like some of them, one of them is making $40,000 monthly. So like, how did you're still active duty, you're not downrange at the moment, but still like you're busy and you're making it happen. So, so walk me through that.
So it got started, with real estate, and that was most of my stuff until very recently. So I bought a house. This was when I was still a civilian or in the reserves. I bought a house, basically nothing down, like $1,000, in Charlotte, and woke up a couple years later.
$1,000.
Yeah, literally. I recommend this to everybody. The easiest way to start is when you buy your first house. Because here's what's going to happen. In a couple of years, you're going to have a ton of equity in that thing. And that's what happened with me. So in a couple of years, I sold it. I think it was like 80,000 in equity after a couple of years. It was ridiculous. I mean, I was very fortunate.
Not a bad payday.
Yeah. Not a bad day. So I used that money. Well, let me back up. I converted that house when I came active duty. I converted that house into a rental. So I held on to it for a couple of years. I was only making a couple $100 a month, but that's not where I was making my money. I was making my money on that mortgage getting paid down and the equity going up in the house. So when I sold it, I had this large chunk of change to get things rolling. So that's when I got started, looking for different ideas. So I had that money. I got stationed in Arizona, and I was like, man, what can I do with this money? And literally I just went on, oh man, what is it called now? The commercial, what is it? The commercial real estate listings. I can't remember what's it called. Help me out.
CBRE?
Yeah, Crexie? The other one. Yeah, it was like Crexie. It was like Crexie.
Okay.
And I literally sorted and said, what makes the most money in relation to the price point? And that's when I found a assisted living home. And
whoa, we are going to have a lot to talk about.
Yeah. And that's what it started. So that first deal, it was like 600,000. I had enough to do that down payment with just the money I made from that rental property. And, my niche was that I was going to lease it out to an operator. So it was already an existing living home in business. I paid 600 grand for it, $80,000 down. And I leased it out to an operator. They basically got to take over the business. They got to keep all the profits. But after 1 year, they would pay me $7,000 a month. And my mortgage was like less than $3,000. So that was my first deal.
Why did you give them a whole year off?
No, I didn't. I started them with, I think it was 4,000 a month for like 6 months. And then it was like 6,000 because basically they were taking over a business. Yeah, I scaled it. Yeah, I scaled it. Because I wanted them to be successful.
Right. So you wanted to give them a little bit of, that was your vote of confidence, and for their success in the partnership, you gave them a little bit of a runway on the front end, and then they had to be stable for you. Okay. That's cool. Yes. And sounds like that was an SBA loan?
No, it was a conventional because because this was in Scottsdale, and that at the time, the market was going crazy. So at the time I got the appraisal, the property paid for everything. Like, I got a steal. I'm gonna be honest. Like I really lucked out. So it was just a standard conventional loan.
Mackerel.
Yeah.
Wait, so a conventional loan, I mean, that's not even, what is that, 13% or something? 12.5%? What is that? That's nothing, right? So 60 grand would be 10%. You paid 80. I mean, yeah. So like basically, yeah, that's like something like 12.5%. I don't know what the closing cost, but sounds like you made it happen at a very low down payment. You got this thing, you found, well, so was this a success or a failure overall?
Well, we're getting there. So originally it was very, very successful, and it's streamlined. So once I got this model worked out, I ended up having 3 of these things. So I was making, $10,000, $11,000 a month. Basically,
dang.
Yeah, it was on
cash flow. Straight up.
Yeah. So I was growing, and this was like all within 3 years. Like it was all while I was just stationed in my tour during Arizona. I leased it out. They kept all the extra profits. Like, keep in mind, these houses are making a ton of money. So for them to pay me between 4,000 and 7,000 for each of the houses, I mean, they were making bank. But I didn't have the wherewithal because I was in Fort Huachuca, which is in South Arizona. And these houses were in the Phoenix area. So I couldn't run these businesses, but I figured out like, what can I do? I'm going to let them keep the profits. I'm going to lease it out to them. And then I structure the deal. So, I'm investing in their success. They're investing in my success. And it worked out. So what ended up happening? Oh, well, I PCS, and I thought it might be a good idea to liquidate these things. Mostly because I wasn't going to be in Arizona anymore. I found out about West Point. I was going to move across the country, and I was like, I'm going to limit my risk and maybe try to do something else. So I ended up selling everything. I probably made, probably like 300,000 or so. But it didn't end well. So we'll get to that. So yeah, I'm sitting on 300,000 in cash, and I was like, man, what can I do to transform this?
I'm sorry. Can I
Yeah.
pause you right there? Like,
Yeah.
it's hard for me to understand how you're pocketing $10,000 to $12,000 a month,
Yes.
and you sold all three of these properties, and all you walked away with was $300,000.
Oh, well, yes. I made 300,000 off the first two. The third one was a complete catastrophe, where I took a bath. I probably lost,
Okay, so okay, but
Yeah.
but still, I'm just trying to understand the math. So let's just say the first one made you half of that 300,000. So because like you bought it for 600, it's cash flowing. I mean, did you sell only the property? I mean, even if you only sold only the property, not the business, right? Because you didn't own the business, somebody else was leasing it out.
Yeah.
You're making, like you said, like maybe $3,000 a month. I gotta imagine it's worth more than 600,000 at that point, or maybe
So
maybe not.
here's what I found. I found that,
Yeah.
because the lease was coming up due, and
Oh,
that was part of it. And they had considerable leverage on what to do. And I was on the way out. And it turns
okay.
out for investors, like this isn't an apartment complex. Assisted living can be very complicated when it comes to medications, everything else.
Sure.
So someone could be like, yeah, I can take this over, but you have to find the right buyer who has the confidence to like take over that property. And even though it was making a bunch of money, that wasn't an easy. You have to find the right buyer.
It's very hard to find.
Yeah,
it's very hard to find either buyers or the right tenant because, I was actually just talking to my partner about this yesterday, where I was saying like this space, like memory care, assisted living, it's almost like the opportunities are almost as plentiful as maybe like mobile home parks 10, 15 years ago. People had like, it was just being discovered, and it was just like this big blue ocean where you could like go and hunt. But the difference is like, it's so intense of a business.
Yeah.
And it's so reliant on the right who to manage it. There's not like unlimited amount of 5-star awesome third-party property managers you can just plug in.
Right.
You can't go do interviews with 10 different managers and just drop of a hat, like go take over. Very different than multifamily.
So yeah, when I listed it, it took a year. Like, even though it was cash flowing like crazy, and there was other considerations too. Like, I didn't want to deal with the risk
and being remote and moving.
Yeah. Being remote and like, people quitting, and then they look to you as a property owner, and then there's people's lives at risk. Like, there was a lot of things that went into that. I was just like, I was seeing the writing on the wall. That related to the third property too, because I ended up not getting that one licensed. Basically the tenant dropped the ball. And I couldn't get that house license. So that deal was like 800,000, and I had basically a $700,000 house I paid 800 grand for that wasn't licensed. So, that was a mess. So I ended up taking a bath.
See.
Yeah. I ended up taking a bath on that one. Luckily I found a investor who was willing to go through all the process to get the house relicensed, but they had to go to the board. It took them 6 to 8 months to get all the paperwork and get everything up to code, which was another 20,000. It was a nightmare. So honestly,
you got to
I
find
thought
the right people for that.
so. Yeah, it was a learning experience. Yeah, go ahead.
So here you are, you move into West Point, you had 3 properties, you've learned a lot. They made you good money while you had them, but you wanted to get out from under them. 2 of them made you about 300. One of them you probably lost something, but you still ended up on top, and you had great experience and lessons under your belt. And you're still active duty, and like, okay, what's the next thing? Like, what happens now?
So I wanted to go for broke, and I was like, what can I do to make this thing explode, to take best advantage of the money. So I was like, man, if I can own a business that I didn't have to run, I thought that would be the best ROI. So I did some due diligence on companies. I ended up investing in a franchise that was absentee owned. And basically I spent all the money doing that.
Okay.
The location was in Augusta, Georgia. I was in Mississippi at the time going to graduate school. I'm saving a long story, but basically we opened in January of 23, and the franchise was going to run the day-to-day operations. And I was just going to get a weekly phone call. When we started, it was great. The first month was like 50 grand in revenue. The second month was 70. We got up to like $80,000 in revenue. It was on fire. However, I later found
I'm
out
listening.
that 2 of my employees were involved in a massive embezzling scheme. And basically what was happening is, even though we were making a ton of money, or we were making a lot of revenue, we weren't making a lot of money. And I knew something was off, because this was a high volume business. I mean, there was money coming in and out like crazy.
You mind me asking what business this was?
Yeah, it was a spray foam installation business.
Spray foam, meaning like in attics?
Yeah, spray foam for construction and attics. And the reason I settled on that, I didn't know anything, but when it comes to entrepreneurship, same thing with real estate. I don't know anything. You just jump into it and do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds like you're like me. I just dive in a lot of times.
Yeah.
I got 7 figures of mistakes doing that, but hey,
Yeah.
I kept progressing.
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure. Yeah. That's the only way. And, but I like the people a lot. And the main thing was I could be absentee owned, because I'm active duty. I asked the question, how can I make a lot of money while being active duty? Well, I need to own an operation that can be managed by someone that will work, which that should have worked, but I hired criminals. Like, that's the bottom line. So
with this franchise, okay, so I just want to make sure I cover all the little like in between things. So
yeah.
You've researched franchises, you found one. Was this a brick and mortar location, or did they just
Yes.
were they just like, okay, so you got a brick and mortar location.
Yep.
You're able to do it remotely. I'm assuming that means did the franchising company help you find the general manager of this location?
Yeah, they did. And
so you had
they
a
helped me do
general
everything.
manager.
Yep.
Okay, and this person had to hire technicians to do this foaming operation, but
Yep.
I'm guessing the embezzlement started at the top with the GM, right?
Yep.
Okay,
And
so
the
that's why
sales.
it wasn't like, oh, okay, got
Yep.
it. Interesting. See, that's something I've learned with everything I'm doing right now is you hire at the top and let that individual build out with you. You work side by side with them, not micromanaging, but so that you as the owner understand what they're doing. But the problem is like, if the wrong person at the top is hired, like it all trickles down. So that's why I was like, was it the GM? Okay, it was.
Yeah.
So okay.
So basically,
they
what was
really
happening?
poisoned the well.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't really have the words to describe how catastrophic it was. So basically, the scheme was they were slowly but progressively just having clients pay them directly, but I was still fulfilling the job. So I'm still paying the payroll, the materials, the fuel. Sometimes this was $30,000 or $40,000 a month to maintain the business. So even though there was a lot of money coming in, like they were pros. They knew what they were doing. And after a few months, it all came out. And one's in jail right now, one's on bail. And I'm still in the middle of it. I'm still, 6-8 months later now. I'm still in the middle of this whole thing. So I'm in the process of liquidating
Holy
everything and wondering if I'm going to get someone to court to deal with all this.
Did the franchising what's the right word? Is it the franchising company, the franchisee, whatever, right? Uh, did they assist with any of this? Like,
They
are
did. I
they
mean,
on the hook at all? Are they liable in any way?
I don't know. They did help me, discover what happened. Um, and they were still willing to like help, but the problem was I ran out of money. Like I just did not have the emotional bandwidth or the financial bandwidth to keep this massive operation going. Um,
Hmm.
so I'm just like in the middle of
Gotcha.
just saying, and part of that too was what was going on at the same time is my finance stuff started to like kick off. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to cut my losses and, work on what was working.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So, I think since we revamped the podcast and I came on as the host, I think I've spoken a few times about some of the failures I've had, and one of the biggest. It's crazy how these things can domino. Like,
Yeah.
so our memory care facility bought it for 4.4 million in 5 years, conservatively. After, especially, I just confirmed this with a broker I was talking to, and he has no. He has no reason not to tell me this, or to tell me this, because he would love to probably sell my property. But he told me, he's like, if you hold on to this, it's going to be a $17 million property. So like, the potential is huge. But I hired the wrong contractor, and that basically wasted a year, which affected not only the renovations but people moving in.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants to move into a construction site. Like nobody wants to move in their elderly loved ones into a construction site, especially those that have like dementia, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to hire another one and increase the debt. Hold on one second. Anyway, and that ended up being even worse because this team, they didn't apply for a permit before demoing the kitchen.
Oh God.
And then they had a dispute with a subcontractor who then told on them by going to the city. The city came down, shut us down. Like the whole thing was just crazy. And so now there's 2 years of like our pro forma that we underwrote gone. And so, and by the way, this was during the highest rate increases in the history of the United States, right?
Yeah.
We closed on this thing in April 2022. And the first year, and everybody, when I started real estate, I was like, I'm never going to have a floating rate loan. But I was like, you know what? 1 year of floating rate? How bad could it be? Like doubled my interest rate, more than doubled my payments. It was nuts.
Yeah.
My payments now, they went from being 18 grand to $42,000 a month. And so I had to get very good at essentially selling shares and selling the dream. And I found great investors and it's going to work out. But like, holy cow, man, it was a wild ride and it's still a wild ride, but we're coming out on top. And, I just want to bring that up there, but like that was a 7-figure mistake on my part. Hiring a bad contractor, because this is post COVID, everybody's all of a sudden like the work influx and everything's happening and we were a small player in this space relative to other big, construction renovation teams. And so, but now, fast forward, like now, the next one I'm going to do, I'm going to figure it, like it's already all figured out. It's not going to be an issue. We got good maintenance. We got a good construction renovation team when I need it, but like, holy cow, we really paid the price. So, I kind of like on an emotional level, I'm listening to what you're saying. First of all, I'm glad you're sharing this because I want everybody to know, yes, we started this question. If you're active duty, yes, you can absolutely get into this game. You can absolutely get into any kind of business, right? But it is potentially going to be risky, but I'll tell you, the confidence I gained by persevering is out of this world. I have such a level, it's kind of like you have to go, the more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war. I went through that. And so I think with you, the same. And so like on an emotional level, I'm hearing you say this and I'm like, I feel you. I know what you went through, but I now, that helped me in my apartment complex business. That helped me in running our education community and knowing like how to properly vet people. It helped give me different perspective. It gave me different resilience to just dealing with anything elsewhere. Cause I'm like, I went through that there. This is nothing, it gives you that perspective. But if you don't mind, let's pause your story there for a second. I want to go back to like, why did you still like, okay, so this is me. And I've mentioned this on the podcast before. I felt a little guilty getting into the whole business world while I was active duty. I wasn't sure if like, hey, especially I went to the Naval Academy. I mean, put yourself in my shoes. Like I just had college paid for, like $400,000 worth of college and training paid for. I'm now going through flight school. That's like a $2 million education.
Yeah.
And here I am thinking about like business. I mean, I'm very thankful for the military. I'm not derelict. Like I'm doing my best, right? I'm still serving, still doing my best. But at the same time, I can tell that like I am excited by other things. There's, at a certain point, I started realizing, I know personally, I knew back then I wasn't going to do the 20 years. And I was like, is this okay that I already know this? Is this okay that I want to step out? I want to prepare for this. And that's when I got into like apartment complexes, mobile home parks, and now memory care facility, building an education community, because I wanted more people around me like you and me. You know, so where was your brain at? Like, what were you thinking mindset wise when you were like, hey, I'm going to get into all this while still serving?
I mean, I've always just been interested in investments, and I thought, I didn't have too much issue with it, mainly because the Army always came first. Like I was able to say, I have to do my job. I like that. It's not a question. Like I'm going to fulfill my obligations, but whenever I have spare time, I'm going to invest that time, and everyone does, if it's playing video games, sports, whatever. Like for me, that extra time is to building something so that I can get out of the military one day. I stayed in longer than I thought because I've, just for my personal, I've, gotten to get really cool jobs, and it's been fine. But I'm not letting the military get in the way of building something for myself and family. Just, I will fulfill my obligations, but the bottom line is I'm trying to build something. So
yeah, no,
I'm going to do it. I'm going to execute.
Yeah. Same page. And, gosh, it's just, it is hard to burn the candle at both ends, isn't it? And like,
oh yeah, it's hard. It's hard. And I don't want anyone to get, the wrong impression. Like, and just like with your story and my story, we paid a heavy price, both personally, financially, and made some massive mistakes and had some massive failures, but, it's worth it. Like it's the only way. I've never heard of an entrepreneur who hasn't had a massive failure at some way. And, if you're active duty, it's an added hardship, but so what? So is life. Just, you know what I mean? Like you just gotta execute. You just do.
I mean, the reality is there's no way to become wealthy and rich without this. I mean, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. I mean, there are the unicorns that just get super lucky, but I bet you 99 out of 100 of them, if you really dig into their story, they're going to have plenty of these moments, plenty of sleepless nights. And, to me, it's almost like this, it's almost like, it's like an adrenaline thing. Like I now am excited and thankful for getting, like, some people like pay to go do bungee jumping, right? Like, and other people would be like, I would never do that, or jump out of an airplane, right? Some people would never do that. To me, I'm like, no, this is it. And like, so you're becoming wealthy and rich is hard. Staying not wealthy, and not rich is hard. Also, they're both hard. Choose your hard. Have you ever seen those memes? Like, choose your hard. It's like, so that's
and what's great.
I'm
sorry. Yeah, no, I was just going to say, what's great about the military, there's always debates about this, but in my opinion, you are equipped with the skill sets. The biggest thing is being able to manage people, to delegate, take calculated risk. Business and military is similar in that it's a people business. It really is. Like, and in my opinion, you develop those skills. You have a leg up if you serve in the military, that you are just equipped with a certain skill set that I think translates very well. And I think, which is why, ADPI has blown up, because I think that there's just so much common ground there in terms of skill sets and mentality that it's no surprise that, you've had so much success building the community.
I appreciate that. But it's been a crazy, crazy bumpy ride for ADPI too. I'll tell you one of the things that has probably hurt our trajectory the most is distraction, like is wanting to do. And here's the thing. It's like, it's well-intentioned distraction. I'll give you an example. The best way to build a business, and if you guys read Good to Great, and I've talked about this in the past, is like you need to have your core focus, as they say in Traction, or your hedgehog concept. If you read Jim Collins' Good to Great, like you need to have a thing that you focus on, because that's kind of, what happens is kind of like compound interest. It grows and grows and grows, and it's like Michael Jordan did basketball. That's it. Like he tried baseball, it didn't work. Like it's like had to do one thing to be great at it. That's how you end up in the history books. But when we started realizing, like, oh, wait, we had members coming to us and they were like, hey, we want to do a loan, or hey, we want to this insurance thing. We realized that we didn't really trust others with our members. And we're like, well, let's set up an insurance company. Let's set up a real estate brokerage. Let's partner with the mortgage branch. And what that did is it started diluting our focus on doing the one thing that we were positioned and wanted to grow and be the best at, which is an education community, period. And so, a lot of that, we could have been way farther along on our mission of impacting 3 million military families. And so we're now like, no, we are only education community. And what we have focused on is putting everything through that lens and only bringing on vetted partners and having a relationship that way, to where it's very accountable and we can sever ties if we need to, if somebody's not serving our community well. And that way we can focus on what we do. And as long as we have a good accountability system with partners that we actually know and vet and have used personally, it's just, I used to be worried about that. And I think it was like an insecurity. I was like, well, I think it's because I don't trust myself with vetting other people. And in fact, like, it's just like, I used to not trust myself with hiring or doing an interview with a person. Like, who am I to decide whether this person's good enough? Now, the obstacle is the way. We got a lot better at that. We're like, no, this is how we're going to do it. Anyway. So what about just this money loss? Okay, so you lost all this money. Now you had to get to, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, like it was in the multiple six figures, right? With this incident. Yeah. That is just stupid painful, right? But you mentioned it like you were like, oh yeah, it's almost, you said it nonchalantly, probably because you're just mentally you're past it now, so you can do it that way. But you're like, hey, I decided to kind of cut my losses almost, you said, I believe. So after losing that much money, like, you still decided to double down? You're still doing business? You're still doing real estate? Like, where are you at?
There's no other option. Because otherwise...
The only way is through?
Because, I mean, otherwise I'm just going to stay normal, and it won't have a great life. Or, maybe that's not true. But if I want to be successful, like, you just have to keep going. And I say it nonchalantly, but trust me, there had been a lot of tears and a lot of depression and everything else.
I feel you,
but I am so thankful that I did find something that, that's starting to gain traction, and I think is really my saving grace right now. But I will say, especially for all the listeners out there, like, like the success I'm having now with my, my personal finance stuff, the 0 day, that would not have happened had not I've gone through what I went through. Like it was necessary for me to fail at such a big level. You can't be an entrepreneur without having some of those failures in your background. Like that is the forging process to success. Cause I remember I was talking to my CPA, who's a close friend, he's an Army buddy. And he's like, man, you took a big swing and you failed. And like, I'm so proud of you that you did that. And I'm like, this is why I keep you as my CPA, cause you keep me sane. But yeah, it's just going to happen. You will fail, but you have to take that risk, because the only way to get there is taking the risk.
Yeah. When I first got into business, real estate, building an education community, everything, I didn't really understand what all those memes, all those books meant when they were like, hey, yeah, you got to like fail harder, fail faster. I was like, what in the world? Sounds like people are just wanting to make an excuse for their own failures. Or like, I don't know. I had an ego, I guess. Now that I look back, I was like, God, I had an ego. Like, why was I not taking them at face value. But the thing is like it's kind of like when you reread a book later, it's like you extract more because now you relate to other things.
Yeah,
more,
you have the context
or to
now.
deeper. You have context. And so now I'm like, oh my God, I know what they mean. And it's like, so to all our listeners, I'm just telling you, like, I would recommend to fail faster. Like fail as like learn the lessons on your own skin, feel the pain faster. That doesn't mean do dumb things. Okay. That doesn't mean don't underwrite a property and just buy it. But it also means like because the key here is it's not going to be your fault necessarily. Right. So as long as you prepare as best as you can, you don't get, down into the, analysis paralysis, if you will, and you take action. It would be your fault if you didn't do anything, because then you're never going to get anywhere. But it's not your fault if you do your best. You decide when the jumping off point is. You take that action and just accept that if I fail, good. If it hurts, good.
And I want to say this too, like, because I'm pretty active on the page, and I see what people comment and stuff. And here's the thing: like, you're never going to be ready. You're never going to be ready enough to whatever you want. You want to find that first property, starting that business. You're not going to know like 90% of what you need to know. The only way you're going to find out is just doing it. And then you fail at some of these small tasks. You're like, oh, this is what I need to do, or this is what works. But you see a lot of people who are just trying to like, they're asking for every little itty bit of information. Like, you have to be okay not knowing half the solution, and you might fail, and it's okay. But that's how you'll get there. That's, like right now, with my personal company, I didn't know anything about real estate when I started. I didn't know anything about spray foam when I started that. And, I'm not going to use that, but I am using some of those skills. And now that I'm running this wealth management thing, I didn't know how to run it. I didn't know how to deal with regulators and all that. I just did it. And then when they asked me stuff, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go figure it out. Like, it's not, I figure it out beforehand and maybe someday start. Like, no, you start, figure it out, and drive on.
Yeah. I love that. I'm absolutely on the same page. Now, let's talk about, well, I guess just 0-day capital. How did because I'm always interested in the inception of the idea. Like, okay, so how did, and then doubling down on that and doing that and day after day, like how did it go from failing in the franchising business, right, with the foam, to boom, I'm doing 0-day, and it's where it is today.
So let me give a little bit of context. So I mentioned I was with Wells Fargo, and I spent all this time getting all these real fancy licenses, and I had experiences working with high net worth clients. I was like, man, I want to leverage that. So when I came active duty, I found a firm that would let me park my licenses, and I would just do it on the side. And I wasn't doing much. I had a handful of clients. I was doing trading for the clients, wealth management, all that stuff. And it was just a single guy running his own little firm from home. I came on and I'm like, hey, I can help you grow this. Like, this is a really neat model, because most people, when they get into financial management or financial advising, they're moving into a building and it's all this stuff. But I was like, man, like, this is really flexible. Like, we can do this, we can recruit people. So I was working for him, but I was growing his firm. I was learning the business, and it was just him. But when I came on, we added 10 advisors and went up to 80 million in assets under management. And it wasn't that hard. I was just like, hey, this is what I'm doing. You can work on the side. You can build your book of business. I did a little bit of marketing, found some people. So while this was all going on, when I was starting to think about the spray foam stuff, I was kind of in that entrepreneurial mindset. I'm like, maybe I could just do this myself. And, I developed all these skills. And part of the reason why I left was I didn't have any equity in that company. Like, I was getting a small percentage, but I'm just like, I'm doing all this work. I'm essentially running this company. And I got nothing to show for him. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go for it. So that's where it started. I filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission, got everything set up, and I just been slowly building it. And
so how does the business work? So like, you work with high net worth clients, right? On
Not even
average,
high
like,
net worth, just even, I have people with not even much money. I'll manage their stuff. Yeah.
okay. And so, and this is like, and I'm just starting from scratch. Pardon
Yeah.
my
Yeah. Yeah.
naivete here. So you basically know what investment opportunities are out there. So that's what you're an expert in. And you have these people and they have certain goals, and you try to create a strategy to get them to their goals through all the opportunities that you know about. So let's say somebody comes, right? Is that right? Just generally speaking
Yeah. But
so far?
it's mostly like, I'm not moving money from their 401k to like a real estate deal. Like it's basically stock, bonds, mutual funds. I'm managing their equities, like uh, their investment
So
portfolio.
nothing retirement accounts. No,
No,
you're not touching retirement accounts.
no, I do manage those. I'm not taking them out to like do alternative investments like real estate. Like I am managing the
I
retirement
see what you're
accounts.
saying.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. So you're not going to
Yeah.
be like, hey, you should put money in this syndication or something like that.
I mean, I could, I just haven't because I mean, I could, but that hasn't been part of my business.
Okay. So I'm just curious, like just trying to get into your mind a little bit, because you obviously appreciate the value of real estate, but with your type of clients, you see it where it's more valuable, like, hey, having a blend of some aggressive and more conservative stock portfolio is what these people value in their life, and that's what they
Yeah.
pay you for, right?
Yeah. So I get a percentage of their, well, let me back up. My main goal is to help clients reach whatever financial goal that they have. So I have this investment advisory background, so stockbroker license, all that stuff. But basically, let's say a client comes to me, they're like, hey, I'm 40 years old. I have several $100,000. Here are my financial goals. By the time I'm 60, I want to be able to pull, $4,000 a month, $6,000 a month in retirement or whatever. Then I'm like, okay, this is how you need to set up your investments. We're going to invest with a purpose. Our goal is to get you to $3 million when you're 60, so that we can pull 5% a year, never touch the principal. You can live off that money, for the rest of your life. So it's very much a intentional financial plan I help clients put, and I help manage their investments to reach those goals. So that's what I do personally. So I still have a handful of clients that I manage, but I have transitioned now. So now I am bringing on more advisors who are doing that as well. So now I'm up to 12 advisors with their own books of business, with their own clientele, and that's how I'm growing the company.
So you're growing a company with people like yourself.
Yes.
So who you used to be, you still have some clients, I got it.
Yeah.
But like you're finding other Travises, so to speak, who have their own books of business. And what you did, and I'm trying to do an analogy with like a real estate broker. So like a real estate brokerage, you have a broker, and then agents hang their license with the broker.
That's right. Exactly
and
right.
So essentially, so you're like the head honcho, but you have a bunch of agents that have their own licenses, but they need to hang that somewhere. You used the word park earlier, but what really, basically they need to assign their license to somebody who is at a higher licensing level, who can take care of them and supervise them. Right?
Yes. So I do their supervision. I make sure they maintain compliance with the Securities and Exchange Commission. I cover their E&O insurance. I provide the IT stack, Google Workspace. I have a third party TAMP. It's a Turn Asset Key Management program I have a relationship with. All the clients' funds are custodied at Schwab. I provide them everything. And the value, so actually now my business is like exactly like you said. I didn't think about that, but yeah, I'm like a brokerage now where I'm like, I will take care of all the things you need to run your business from home.
Right.
Like you don't need to work, like you can work on the beach and manage people's money. Everything's up in the cloud now. So I provide all that stuff. I pay for all that stuff. And they help pay for that, but that's the value I bring now. And that's the company I'm building.
Really, really cool. I love that model. That sounds awesome. And obviously there's some kind of revenue share between you and your agents. I'm just calling it
and I could talk about that. So,
Okay. I didn't want to dig in too far.
No, that's fine. That's fine. It's good to be transparent. And this is how I get people, because I'm a big believer in taking care of your people. They're going to want to stick with you. So my value is I'm going to pay you more than anyone else pays you. For example, I just had someone who's working at Edward Jones, as she's in her office working. She is making like 40% off her gross revenue. And I'm like, would you like to make 80? and do it from home, and just work on your own book doing that. She's like, yeah. And she came over. Like that was the sale. I'm like, I'll take care of all your stuff. I'm going to pay you more because I don't want her to leave, because she's going to be building her book, and, these are going to, and so, yeah, we have a revenue share. Typically it's anywhere from 20 to 25% the firm gets, and then they'll get like 80% or so.
So you're probably targeting, and the reason I'm digging into this, I'm interested, again, selfishly, this is why I love doing the podcast, but also because I think we have a lot of listeners who are trying to think of what's the next thing. A lot of our listeners are, hey, I want to go all in real estate. And some of them are, they're not hobbyists, but it's not what they want to do all in. They want to buy a home every now and then, maybe own a few rentals on the side to grow their own investments. That's their, my attorney laughs when I call real estate alternative investment. He's like, it's the most tried and true thing in the world.
Oh yeah.
But so for actually quick little plug, if you do want to go all in real estate, ADPI's program for those that want to go all in is apartment complex investing, right? You can do flipping, you can do wholesaling, like you can do all sorts of different kinds of real estate, basically all in full time, like basically like Travis is building his 0-day capital. You guys could build your portfolio of apartment complexes and bring out investors and buy that stuff with them. We do have a program that does that. And if you go to activedutypassiveincome.com/strategy, you can apply, and we go through an entire strategy call with you, and kind of exactly what Travis is doing, like advising we go through that on the apartment complex side. But anyways, enough on that. I just wanted to make sure people understand, like if this is your first time listening, you understand how ADPI works. We have a residential program that's just more like you just want to grow your wealth and some side income. And then there's hey, I want to go all in. Okay, well, our method of going all in is apartment complexes. But now back to how you structure stuff, right? So you give them, and I love that, but what it tells me is you're probably looking for people that already have experience and are not those that rely on inbound business leads coming from wherever they hang their license in. They have a personal brand that they can probably, in a method to find their own clients. And that's why they want to be rewarded maximally for finding those clients. And so they don't need to feed off of whatever company that they're working at. They find their own clients. So they're like, I want to keep most of that business. So they're interested going to you, right?
Yeah.
And that's why you can sell them.
Yeah. And some of them, they'll do their whole branding, and they'll do a DBA and they clear under 0-day, but they're Markian financial planning or wealth management or whatever. Like, and that's totally fine. And I support that. And that's my other value. Like I allow people to build their business in that way. I will handle all the back end stuff. And also too, like some of my advisors, including myself, have full-time careers. So that's a little hard to do if you want to go work for Bank of America. Like you can't, but if you're in the military or if you're in doing whatever.
Let's talk about this.
Yeah. So actually my last person I brought on, she left Edward Jones. She does real estate now, and that helps her build her book of business. So now on the side, she's working on building her clientele that way, really for real estate business. And I have everything set up that maintains compliance with the federal government and all that stuff. So that is another thing that I can help with.
Okay. So for all those listening, what you're saying is that, okay, if somebody's like, hey, I love doing real estate on the side, right? Because that's mostly who's listening to us, but also entrepreneurial people are listening to us that are military. But you're like, I don't know that I want to go all in on real estate, but I do. And this is why I transit. Like I knew that I wasn't going to do 20 years. So I knew I had to start building a separate identity outside of the military. I was going to take off my uniform someday. This isn't something I'm going to do till so I was like, what is the thing that I want to do professionally, my professional identity, the thing that I want to like excel at, my sport, if you will. But you're saying that this is something military members could very well look into because it's something they can start while they're still active duty even. Am I right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So really cool. They get licensed. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And honestly, there's companies out there that go after you. A lot of people are familiar with First Command. They kind of got a rough reputation, but that's their thing, but they want you to transition now and go work for First Command.
Right.
yes, yeah, this is one of those things. It's like real estate too. I know some of your guys, they do real estate on the side. It's the same principle. You get your license, you hang your license, you can build your book. And I've taken on new people. Usually I ask them to at least cover, like, I don't try to make money off of them, but I ask them just to like, hey, pay your registration, pay, because some people come on, they won't do anything and it costs money to
Oh yeah,
register.
yeah. You need to make sure that they have some skin in the game before they come on with you.
Well, at first I was like, oh, I'll take care of everything. And then they come on and ghost me and I'm out $500 another lesson.
Yeah. Not worth
so, but yeah.
Okay. So gosh, that's really cool. And so how much do you make? So when you're talking book of business, and again, these are all terms that like when I first got into like this world, I didn't really understand. So for some of our listeners, let's say you have a client that comes in, he's like, hey, I have $250,000. I want to invest this properly. That now is what you call like that. You got $250,000 added to your book of business, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you have one client and they brought $250,000. That's now a part of your book of business.
That's right.
And so do you, and this might be kind of a delicate question, do you make money when they win, or do you always make money whether it goes up and down on their portfolio? How does that even work?
Yeah, we're not a hedge fund. That's kind of what, some hedge funds do that way. So no, the way it works is, sorry, let me back up. There's a couple different models. To be a fiduciary, there's a certain way we have to charge. So the old model was if you do any trading for your client, you would get a commission. If you bought Tesla stock, whatever, there would be a commission that would go to the advisor. So there's this financial incentive for the advisor or the stockbroker they used to call it churning. Like, oh, I'm going to do all these trades and make all this money.
Yeah. Just trade, whether it wins or not, trade, get commissions.
Yeah. So we are fiduciaries. There's a fiduciary standard that we have. So we cannot get paid or earn money from doing that. We only collect funding based on how much money you have with us. And we take generally anywhere from 1 to 1.5% a year, in total. And it gets valued at the end of the month and that gets paid. But what's nice about that is there's no financial incentive. Like, let's say I meet with a client. I'm like, hey, the best thing for your financial goals, I'm going to invest you in the S&P 500. Now you could buy them a Class A mutual fund share that would generate a 5% commission to yourself, but, or you can invest in VOO, an index fund that doesn't cost anything. So there's no financial incentive for me to put you in a high commission product. I'm going to put you in an investment that is in your best interest. So that is how I get paid. I'm only
so you don't get the commissions. So you don't get commissions from the mutual fund. You might still invest it in the mutual fund, but you're not going to get the commission from it. You only do the 1 to 1.5% off of the volume that they're investing with you.
Yes, a year. So at a monthly basis, it's like a fraction of a percent. So yeah, you need to have a lot of money to even make anything. Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so let's say it's 1.2%, divided by 12, it's 0.1%. So let's say it's $250,000. Yeah, well, I don't know.
I think that would be 200 or something. Yeah,
something like that. Yeah, so like because 1% of 250 is $2,500. So yeah, it's about like $200 a month. From that one client. So what you want to do is like really, let's say somebody wants to make 6 figures just for the exercise. Like you're probably looking at like you want at least 10 million. Yeah, 10 million. Yeah, so really, you're just racking up clients. You're slowly growing your income. I mean, it's kind of like acquiring rental properties, but you don't need a down payment.
You're right. And I'm so frustrated. I wish, because I had all the skill set. Like I should have just spent all the money I made from real estate building this book of business that I know how to do, but I'm just dumb, I guess. And, I didn't think about it at the time because, man, I'd be really cooking now if I invested $300,000 in like recruiting or whatever, but lessons learned. So, we're having success now. The firm manages, I think we're closing in on 50 million across the firm. And I'm still recruiting, and that's what I do when I'm not working. I talk with advisors, see if they're willing to come on, and they bring their own books of business. And I take on some new people, but again, they got to pay their stuff, but that's what I'm doing. And I really enjoy it. I love taking care of my clients because, like I have clients now who are in retirement, and it's like, hey, I've had them for 10 years and I'm like, hey, like we invested because now we can take money. And, I get them invested in such a way that they'll never run out of money. Like, it's going to be a 4 or 5% pull rate.
Yeah, you
Their
really
kids
take
will
care of
inherit the
them.
money. I put all that stuff in place, and I make sure my advisors do as well. Because I want clients to stay. I want families to stay. I'm trying to build a real thing, because this is what I'm going to do after the military. So I do everything I can with that in mind.
Wow, Travis, I love that. You've educated me a ton. You've educated our members a ton. What can our members? Because I know when I probably start kind of like liquidating some of my assets in the future, I'm definitely going to come to you. So I
got one client today.
Yeah. Thank you for shining the light bulb for me. Now let me know. What can our members do to get a hold of 0 Day Capital and sign up with you or one of your awesome people there?
Yeah, I appreciate it. 0daycapital.com is my website. You'll see me in uniform with my boys. You can send me an email, travis@zerodaycapital.com.
Wow, Travis, thank you so much for educating me. I know that when I get to the point that I'm going to liquidate some of my assets, because I'm very heavily still invested into, real estate and the businesses I'm running. But when I do have that time, when I want to start taking the steps that you're describing some of your clients take, I'm definitely going to come to you. So I appreciate that. And I also want our members to be able to come to you if they want this help, or actually better yet, what if somebody wants to start working for you on the side while they're still in the military or after, or they're listening to this and they're working for a place where they're only getting 40% on the dollar, right? And they want to come to you. So I want people to be able to connect with you. Do you have an email people can reach you if they're interested in a job maybe, or they have a one-off question after this?
Or if you just want to hang out, or just set me up. Yeah, it's Travis at 0daycapital.com.
Travis@zerodaycapital.com. You heard it here. I'm just excited for everybody that got to listen to this episode, because I do think that this provides such a great, I call it like a softer landing. If there's a way that you can see yourself, if you're interested in finance and investing in real estate, this might be a great way for you to start slowly building a book of business, acquiring clients, getting licensed in something that is an actual asset in the real world, like being a professional in this way. And maybe not necessarily needing a down payment for each one of these clients, right? You don't have to pay for these people's books of business. You just have to be good at showing your value, bringing them on. Mm-hmm. And then that really builds your personal income, right? Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah. So I appreciate it, Travis. Any final words, any last rounds that you want to make sure everybody knows or hears, takes away?
I was a young broke soldier. I know the struggle. If someone were to ask me how to get started, listen, you can do what I did. Get that first property, live in it. You're going to wake up one day and it's going to be a ton of equity. And it's a very low bar to entry with the VA loan. And that money, that seed, can take, help fund wherever you want to go, whatever you want to do, whether it's investing in real estate or you want to start your own business too. I'm a big believer in starting with that first property, getting in it, maybe using that as a rental. And you can do this. If you are in the military, you can build something. You can do it.
That's awesome. You heard it, guys. If you want to do it, you can build it. And that's ADPI's entire thing, is acquiring assets, building your own assets like businesses when you're in the military or after. So please spread the word about our podcast, about our mission of impacting 3 million military families. Do what all the cool kids do, like, subscribe, share, all the things. And we'll see you in the next episode of the ADPI podcast. Thanks again, Travis.
Thank you.
See you later, everybody.